So last week, Ukrainian special operators conducted a daring mission, landing under fire just outside of Pokrovsk, the hottest sector of the front. Now, Russian sources pretty quickly claimed the helicopter was shot down and all Ukrainian soldiers were killed. So let's dig into what we know so far. The Kyiv Independent reported on November 1st, quote, earlier reports suggested that Ukraine's military intelligence agency, GUR, launched a special operation involving airborne assault units in Pokrovsk under the command of GUR chief Kirillo Budanov. Reuters reported on October 31st that the raid began earlier this week when Ukrainian special forces landed from a Black Hawk helicopter in areas comprised by Russian drone activity. A video seen by the agency appears to show at least 10 soldiers disembarking in an open field. The location and date of the footage have not been independently verified. I want to shift over to a couple different map views here to give you an idea of what we're talking about. I'll start with Deep State map, kind of zoomed in, come out here a bit. This is the Pokrovsk salient here. Pokrovsk, Minorad, a little further north. The landing has been geolocated, to my understanding, in this area right here. Now, looking at that is listed as contested by Deep State. It's not listed as contested by Suryak map. Again, one of the many differences between these two. But this area here right in the middle of the screen is supposedly where that landing took place. And you'll see how it has some significance when you're looking at Pokrovsk and the possibility of getting troops in and out, especially on any mounted elements. There's really just two roads, and the intersection is right here. Now, little different war right now than we fought historically. Physical control of that road does not mean it's security. The vast majority of vehicles getting destroyed trying to enter or exit Pokrovsk are being done by drones, soldiers flying those from 5, 10, 20 kilometers away even. So direct control over one of these roads does not automatically open it up to the free flow of traffic in or out. Now, the Russian Ministry of Defense was pretty quick to say that they thwarted this entire operation. Quote, an operation to deploy a GUR special operations group by helicopter 1 kilometer northwest of Pokrovsk was thwarted. All 11 militants who disembarked from the helicopter have been neutralized. Then Colonel Kassad, a Russian mill blogger or war reporter with about 1 million-strong audience, said, quote, most of the landing force, consisting of elite special operations forces by Ukrainian standards, were killed or wounded, number 200 or 300. The American UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter they arrived in was also destroyed. Now, there's been no evidence to support that a helicopter was destroyed during this operation, like no footage of a helicopter getting hit, no footage of a helicopter flying off in the distance, smoking. In fact, we did get another clip of a helicopter taking off and leaving. From what I can tell, it's not trailing smoke, doesn't look like it took any direct impacts. Colonel Kassad, for what it's worth, appears to be the one that, I don't know if he started that claim, but that spiraled pretty quickly in the initial hours after this reporting that a Black Hawk helicopter had been shot down. It eventually, it seems like a lot of the Russian reporters moved away from that claim. Now, Russian mill blogger Two Majors added to this, saying, quote, yesterday, Zelensky handed over data to Western media about a GUR landing in the industrial zone of Pokrovsk. On a NATO helicopter, enemy personnel were dropped to carry out, no less, a whole counteroffensive, about a dozen fighters. Apparently, Kyiv wanted to do a flag operation, essentially plant a flag for PR purposes. He said, in principle, the headline in the Western Journal was successful, but things did not go well afterwards. Footage is already spreading online showing about a dozen Ukrainian special forces gradually killed. So what, 10 GUR soldiers? They'll catch more in the streets. Now, the footage that Two Majors is referencing is what I'm playing on the screen here. I have some pushback on this footage, especially when you're trying to use terms like this is geolocated to that region, so it must be the GUR forces. I would not personally look at this and say that is definitive proof that the guys that got off the helicopter in the first clip are on the receiving end of these thermal drone strikes, clipped in a few minutes later. We'll come back to that footage here in a minute, but ISW, Institute for the Study of War, put out an assessment saying, quote, Ukrainian 7th Rapid Reaction Corps of the Air Assault Forces reported on November 1st that Ukrainian forces conducted a successful air assault operation near Pokrovsk. Ukrainian main military intelligence directorate sources told Ukrainian broadcaster Suspline on October 31st that elements of the GUR conducted the operation, which involved multiple helicopters. And for what it's worth, I don't think we've seen anything with more than one helicopter in terms of footage from this specific operation. They say they entered areas that the Russian military command previously claimed to have seized. The GUR sources stated that these areas are critically important for Ukrainian logistics in the Pokrovsk direction. Again, not hard to see. It is kind of the area where, the last area where Ukrainian forces are able to get in or out of Pokrovsk. Geolocated footage published on October 31st shows Ukrainian service members disembarking from a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter west of Pokrovsk in an area where Russian sources previously claimed that Russian forces maintained a presence. The Russian Ministry of Defense claimed on November 1st that Russian forces repelled the Ukrainian counterattack. A Russian mill blogger noted on November 1st that the ability of Ukrainian helicopters to penetrate into airspace saturated with Russian drones without sustaining losses raises questions, presumably about the strength of the Russian air defense umbrella in the Pokrovsk direction. So, as mentioned earlier, we did see Russians kind of move away from the claim that they shot down one of these UH-60 helicopters, and now the assessment is instead, how on earth is a UH-60 able to get that close to the line of contact? Now, I mentioned that I do have a couple concerns I wanted to walk through here in terms of just not fully understanding the entire story. And look, no doubt we're going to see folks push in every direction to try to, whatever. They just want to. Now, I did mention that I have a couple concerns here, things that don't really add up that I felt like are worth addressing. And I should caveat this with, I have no idea what actually happened here. I have the same information you do, no secret sources, nothing I'm unwilling to share. So I'm having to base this entirely off of the same footage that you're looking at in this video. And the lack of footage is notable. We have to say that. So my understanding is that first clip of the UH-60s was released by Ukraine, maybe? Either way, we've got nothing from the Russian side showing that landing, any usage of drones in the immediate area as that's taking place. And then when they showed the footage of these drone strikes that they say were of the GUR members, maybe, right? Like, look at this map. Do you know where drone strikes? So this is where the landing took place. Do you know where drone strikes are taking place on this map? Everywhere. And have been for months and months and months. This is a contested area of the front up here. I would be surprised if there were fewer than 100 drone strikes in the last 24 hours. So there is countless footage of drone strikes taking place all across here. I don't know that a clip showing a drone impacting someone under a thermal camera is automatically proof that it is the same guys that got off the helicopter in a different clip. I wouldn't take that as verifiable proof elsewhere. It feels a little bit off here. It might be, but the way it's put together just doesn't, it's not what we've accepted for viable proof elsewhere throughout this conflict. Another piece is we haven't seen any follow-up footage from Russia kind of celebrating this. You heard these mill bloggers. They're all about this, right? They stopped this elite Ukrainian special operations force, and then it just went silent. The footage that I'm showing you here has not changed in the last 3 days. Like, this is what came out right away, and I should note, none of it came out until there was a clip released by Ukraine showing the UH-60, and then Russia immediately was like, yes, also all of these clips are of the guys we killed coming off the bird. So for whatever reason, it seems like all of these Russian mill bloggers sat on it for like 3 days and waited for Ukraine to report that it happened first before releasing footage saying that they stopped the attack. That also doesn't really line up. And that comes back to kind of the key issue here, that we're really only getting one side of the story. By and large, Ukraine hasn't said anything about this. And that's unusual in this conflict. I don't like it. You guys know that the folks that have been here for a while, you know that I like to try to cite both sides of situations to give, this is what Ukraine is saying about Pokrovsk, for instance, and this is what the Russians are saying. And rarely does it line up. I got it. But we at least generally get two perspectives of the same thing, even in cases where Ukraine has carried out operations that have not gone well. There were landings attempted multiple times in Crimea, and there was one case that comes to mind where the boat was shot up and beached, and there were, 5 to 7 Ukrainian special operators that were killed. Russia released that footage very quickly, but Ukraine still talked about that operation a couple days later. It was framed a little bit differently, and they talked about the success that other boats had, but you can at least put one to one and say they're talking about the same thing. In this case, Ukraine isn't talking about this at all. So you're forced to kind of read into that. And you could, when there's that little information, you can read into it any direction you want. That's not usual in this conflict. I mentioned the geolocation earlier. That doesn't matter. And I know there's people that are really, really good at that. I'm not one of those people, but there's nothing special about finding out that this is where a helicopter landed. Got it? There's also nothing unique about finding out that drone strikes took place here. Props to the people that were able to figure that out, but that's not like a 1 + 1 = 2 type scenario. Again, drone strikes are taking place all across the front, this entire area. So the fact that a helicopter landed somewhere where drone strikes are also taking place is like an irrelevant detail. So the geolocation, what are we really getting from that? Another piece that's just kind of lingering in my mind is why here? Why now? Now, folks might say, well, Pokrovsk, it's about to fall. You got to get people in there. You got to do something, got to take action. But look, Ukraine has had this capability and had these aircraft for a while. We did not see this type of operation in Severodonetsk. We did not see this type of thing in Bakhmut. We did not see it in Avdiivka. We did not see it in Kursk. So why? Now, we have seen helicopter raids like in Belgorod and other areas along the front, but when we're talking about a location getting ready to fall, the need to fly a group of special operators in right near the front on helicopter is not like a normal thing that Ukraine has done, and they have had multiple areas that have fallen in recent years. So why would be an outstanding question that I don't think we have answered yet. Now, in terms of a couple key takeaways, things I feel relatively confident in relaying here, the reason for the operation is unknown. Look, people are going to debate, was it worth it or not? We don't know because we don't actually, or at least personally, I don't actually know how this thing ended up, and I don't know exactly what they were trying to get done in the first place. We mentioned when looking at the map the importance of these Western approaches in terms of infill, exfil, no doubt, but these have been under fire for months now. I mean, it has been a long time since a Ukrainian vehicle has been able to move along this road without getting blown up by Russian drones, which is why we've seen countless footage recently of so many infills and exfills having to take place dismounted on foot. So yes, this is an important area, but it has been important since the Battle of Pokrovsk began over a year ago, and it has been getting hit with Russian drones for about just as long. So the idea that putting 11 guys, there's no one in the Ukrainian military that thinks 11 guys on a helicopter are going to open up that passage. It's just, it's not viable. It has not been viable for a long time. I do feel pretty confident that a helicopter was not shot down. There's just been no footage of that at all. And again, we're starting to see the Russians move away from that claim as well. I did see some suggestions that this might have been to try to exfil like key personnel that they had to get out of Pokrovsk. That doesn't really line up. I mean, maybe they're going in to try to get them to help escort them out. But if you're trying to move somebody out of an area in a helicopter, this is like the polar opposite way that you try to do it. If you look at the clip, the helicopter lands, no doubt surprising the Russian forces that aren't expecting this, and then everybody dismounts, and then the key component here is the helicopter takes back off. So the last thing you want to do if you're trying to catch an enemy off guard and bring a helicopter in, like we saw this in Mariupol at times, the last thing you want to do is land the helicopter, alert all of the Russians to, oh my God, there's a helicopter over in this area. Everybody goes on alert. The element of surprise is completely lost, and then you circle back and do it again in the same general area to pick someone up. That's how you lose a helicopter. So no, there's no indication that this was to quickly pick somebody up off the front lines. Maybe it has to do with securing some kind of exfil route, but again, we're gonna have to wait for more information to come out. Again, I'm seeing explanations that this was trying to confuse the Russians or throw them off, or all the way over to this is just a straight up propaganda move, plant a flag and make the Russians look bad for PR purposes. Wait for more information to come out, I suppose, but I tried to show everything I've come across in this regard. I've been in touch with a lot of different people that are in a similar space, trying to what are you seeing? Are there channels I'm not coming across, or are there different assessments? This is it right now. There's not a lot. As more information comes out, I'll try to present that. It's a unique one though, so I felt like it was at least worth addressing in its own video. And then after this, we'll get back to some more broad battlefield updates and kind of the geopolitical situation with the United States. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.